Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. It is Friday, December 12th, 2014, and I'm Leanne McAdoo. Here are tonight's top stories.
Tonight, a heated debate concerning the official story of Sandy Hook. That's next on the Infowars Nightly News.
Just from a lay media investigative journalist perspective, something is rotten here.
After a week of manufactured government shutdown drama, the House has managed to pass a $1.1 trillion spending bill. And now those same conservatives that helped to push this through to the Senate are raging against their leaders, basically saying that they have squandered away a landmark electoral victory in just about 1 month. Now they have maneuvered themselves into a position where the losers, in this case the Democrats, are going to be able to demand their support for a bill that's going to effectively grant the losing party power through 2015. That is half the term for the incoming Congress. So everyone that we basically just voiced our opinions and voted and said, we want y'all out of there, well, now they're going to have a $1.1 trillion spending bill to go ahead and continue their agenda for the next year. Now, if you get a chance to check out this article, it's on humanevents.com. It's a really long article entitled Cromnibus, a winter festival of unrestrained spending. And it does a really good job at breaking this down. Basically, the sole reservation in this winter spending festival is the Department of Homeland Security. It's only funded through February. So the GOP leadership is going to pretend that it's going to stage this huge fight over Obama's illegal amnesty orders next year. So that's basically they're holding out their big fight, their big guns. They're going to pull out the big guns. Then the author of this article says that this is supposedly to mollify those of us who still care about antiquated notions like the rule of law, the separation of powers, the value of citizenship, and national security. Of course, this is just long enough for the establishment to enjoy its holiday vacation. But pointing out the facts, there was no reason to give the defeated Democrats anything except a stopgap bill, which would have kept the government funded through January, at which point the incoming Republican majority Congress could have exercised control over everything. And if Democrats didn't like that, well, then they could have just shut down the government, allowed the government to shut down, and then they would have had to explain to all of the voters, why they needed to give their support to this party that they just tried to throw out of the government. They would basically be in a position where they'd have to explain to all of us why we need to allow them to have power for the next year. Does this make sense to anyone? Definitely not me. So let's take a look at what's in this. Well, there's more money for the ISIS-linked Syrian rebels, $500 million to be exact. Now, this is going to be used to equip appropriately vetted elements of the Syrian opposition who are going to defend the Syrian people from attacks by the Islamic State of Iraq and or ISIS. And you'll recall that back in September, ISIS signed a truce with the remaining rebel groups, and they are now working together against the Syrian government. We reported on that. We reported that they had joined forces. They said they're the most powerful in the region, so of course we're going to work with them. And maybe they're not aligned. These people that are getting these equipment and all these $500 million, maybe they're not aligned with ISIS at the moment. But just like Rand Paul said, and like we have told you, most of the arms that we have given to these so-called moderate rebels have wound up in the hands of ISIS. They've either simply taken them, it's given to them, or we mistakenly give them to some of these radicals, thinking that they are moderates. And of course, what else is in the Cromnibus, right? It's a 1,600-plus page bill that is way too big for any of our super busy elected representatives to read so they can rush off to their Christmas break. It has to be passed or else the government is going to shut down, so just pass it. Don't worry about what's in it. It has a nice little provision for the banksters. And once again, it's going to put the FDC on the hook for financial derivatives losses. So it is a giveaway to Wall Street. Nancy Pelosi, here I agree with her, she said it privatizes the gain and nationalizes the risk. So basically, if the banksters succeed in these risky derivatives, they are going to pocket the money. If they fail, the taxpayer is on the hook. And this is much bigger than the collapse in 2008 because that only represented 1/20th of the American economy. This represents the GDP of the globe. And here to basically break down what this monstrosity of a spending bill is, it's nothing more than modern day slavery. Here is David Knight.
Well, what we learned this week is that Congress wasted no time in leveraging their power and using derivatives to do it. Now, to give you a little bit of background as to what they've done before we talk about just how damaging this is going to be for the American taxpayer, for your wealth, go back to the original Depression. A large part of what happened with that was speculative options that were being sold. People were buying stocks on margin. As a response to that, they created the Glass-Steagall Act, which would basically remove that kind of speculative investment away from banks. Banks would be insured by the government, but only if they stayed to a core business that was very conservative. We saw that removed before the banking crisis of the early 2000s that allowed banks to get once more into the derivatives market to start getting into these options. And of course, they used the derivatives on mortgages, breaking the chain of title, securitizing the mortgages, selling bits and pieces of them, mixing them all up. That's a big story. We've talked about that before. And they were prohibited, supposedly, by the Dodd-Frank bill. Now, this week, we see the Republican Congress stripping that away. Again, allowing banks to get back into completely speculative derivatives, but this time, it's a much larger market. When this happened with mortgages, the amount that we bailed the banks out of, about $700 to $800 billion, was about 1/20th of our gross domestic product here in the United States. We all felt that. We saw what happened to people who had homes as the market crashed on their values. They couldn't refinance, they couldn't sell. The banks were able to buy that up cheaply, get into the market at the bottom. Now what they want to do is they want to pull in derivatives all over the world. This is a market that was estimated about 4 years ago to be 1.2 quadrillion. Quadrillion. The entire economy of all the earth, all of the countries together, all of the gross domestic products is estimated to be about $60 trillion. So we're looking at a derivative market here that's not 1/20th the size of the U.S. economy, but is 20 times the size of all the economies on the earth. And they want you, the American taxpayer, to pay for it. Congress is leveraging your wealth for their power. And make no mistake about it, that's what this is about. In this bill, they also raise the amount of money that people can, the limits, the caps that people can give to the Republican National Committee, to the Democrat National Committee. They raise that limit from $34,000 to $324,000, a tenfold increase. And of course, that's just where the leverage begins. Jamie Dimon at J.P. Morgan, as well as the Citigroup, have both been leveraging their investments, their campaign contributions, their lobbying fees into this specific type of legislation. For the last couple of years, Citicorp and J.P. Morgan have each given $5 million to Congress, as well as getting them on the phone. What do they get for that $5 million investment? They get access to $1 quadrillion worth of insurance. That's $1 million to 1 return on their, not even $1 million to 1, that's $1 million return for every dollar they spent. It's much higher than that return of investment. So that's what they're putting you on the hook for. They're going to have you on the hook, insuring their risks throughout the world. Is it time for Atlas to shrug? David Knight, Infowars.com.
So it's absolutely a complete monstrosity. Why are our elected officials not hanging their heads in shame? Once again, they're saying they do all of this for the will of the American people. Did we not make our will clear there in the last elections? Now, remember about a week ago, We had reports of a senior Korean Air executive demanding that her flight be turned back around and go back to the terminal because the flight attendant dared to serve her nuts in a bag rather than a bowl. Well, here she is now giving a press conference, literally hanging her head in shame. This is how she's giving her press conference. She's so embarrassed for what she did, acting all elite and forcing this plane to turn back around. She hangs her head in shame. Wouldn't it be magnificent if we could see our own elected officials hanging their head in shame? Even Weiner didn't go out and give press conferences like this when he got caught doing all that sexting and stuff. We have people here torturing others, giving them rectal rehydration, doing all kinds of random things with nuts in a bag, and they don't hang their head in shame. They just say, we did it for the will of the American people.
2015 is almost here, and with it comes those New Year's resolutions to finally transform your body the way you want it. There's a reason over 88% of New Year's resolutions fail. Make this year different by equipping yourself with Oxy Powder, the next level in cleansing the body naturally. Using super oxygenation, Oxy Powder, available through InfoWarsLife.com, gently cleanses the body while you sleep with easy capsules. Tens of thousands of individuals have used Oxy Powder to cleanse their bodies and aid in their transformations. Even InfoWars Nightly News Director Rob Dew has been using Oxy Powder with incredible success.
Took it that first day, and then I took it for 6 more days after that. 12 pounds melted off in about a week. I'd say a week, 7 days.
2015 can be different. Diet and exercise are important, but a lot of us have already tried that. Oxy Powder flushes it out. Secure your Oxy Powder at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139.